Hi there. Today we're going to do a video ranking the albums by the influential German group Kraftwerk. Now this video is going to be a little different than my usual ranking videos in that I'm going to talk a little bit about the band's history before I actually do the ranking. Kraftwerk basically had 4 periods in their music, and I'd like to go over those 4 periods. The first period of Kraftwerk was highly experimental and contained tracks with sound collages and stuff that's not thought of in regular musical circles. They were very experimental, abstract music, pretty much completely instrumental. And the heart of Kraftwerk was Ralf Hütter and Florian Schneider, who remained in Kraftwerk through all these albums. So the first period that they had, and I'm going to include an album that's not really an official Kraftwerk album, is these 3 albums. This first one is by a group called Organization. Now Organization only did 1 album. This one is called Tone Float, and Ralf Hütter and Florian Schneider were on it, and 3 other musicians who really haven't appeared in the musical scene since. But this album got the least amount of electronic stuff. It's pretty much all acoustic. It's got a lot of percussion in it. It's got flutes and almost nothing electronic at all in it. This is the first official Kraftwerk album. And like the Organization album, very little electronics. It's mostly, although there was some guitars in it, but it was basically percussion and flutes and different kinds of experimentation. And Ralf Hütter, Florian Schneider, and a guy named Klaus Dinger is on it. This is their second official album, which is the 3rd one on this group here. And it came out in '72. And it's just Ralf and Florian on it. And it has the first hint of electronics. The first piece on it is a side-long piece called Kling Klang, which actually had enough influence that they named their studio Kling Klang Studios. It's almost the entire first side of the album, and it has a drum machine in it, and for the time this was pretty unusual. And so, if you like Kraftwerk for their strictly techno-pop stuff, this is not what you're going to be looking for. These 3 albums, although were never released, well, at least from the beginning, they were only released once officially, and now you can't get official releases of it anymore. And the Kraftwerk duo, Ralf and Florian, have never had any interest in reissuing these albums. But I think they're pretty cool albums. But they're the kind of albums you like if you'd like, say, Pink Floyd's Uma Guma, or very early Tangerine Dream before Phaedra. And they are pretty interesting. The second phase of Kraftwerk's music is one I like to call the progressive stage. It's not technically progressive music, but it's the closest they've gotten. And there are definitely some progressive leanings in it. And this is also 3 albums, and this is from like 1974 to 1976. And that would be these 3 albums. Now this one here is called Ralf and Florian, and there's the 2 people, the main heart of Kraftwerk. And again, they were the only ones who played on it. Like the first 3 albums, this was never given an official re-release. And again, it's all instrumental, well, except for a little bit of vocoder on the last piece. Last piece called Anana Symphony, which translates to Pineapple Symphony. And this definitely had some of their electronic stuff in it. Actually, it's kind of surprising they didn't re-release it, because it fits in well with these 3 albums. Next one, this is their breakthrough album, Autobahn. Now, Autobahn is very progressive. It's their most progressive album, probably. And it has a side-long track on it called Autobahn, which is almost 23 minutes long. and has some vocals. They're only in German, but it's pretty simplistic. Most people like this for the music more than anything. Side 2 of it, the album has got 4 pieces and it's completely instrumental. There is a little bit of the experimentation towards the end of this that's similar to what their first 3 albums had. But this album did a lot, sold a lot more than any of their albums previously. Also, Autobahn is the last one to have any acoustic instruments or traditional instruments in it that aren't electronic. This album, Radioactivity, is their first album that is totally electronic. Although it's totally electronic, it does have some progressive leanings because the songs are broke down in a way that kind of fits in a little more with progressive music than the techno pop they became famous for. Now from here on to the rest of the albums, the group is Ralph and Florian, Karl Bartos, and Wolfgang Fleurer. And I hope I'm pronouncing all that right. But from here on, they were pretty stable. They had a pretty stable lineup. Now their third phase of music is the one that was their influential stage. And that would be these 3 albums. This is the techno pop age that they became famous for. These albums all sold pretty well. And these albums came in both a German and an English version, which these are the English versions, along with the album after it that's on the next group. So these albums were really, really popular and influenced a lot of other groups that did techno pop. The first one's Trans Europe Express. The German version is called Trans Europa Express. This is the Man Machine, and the German version is Die Mensch Machine, if I'm pronouncing that right, and Computer World, and this German version was called Computer Welt. All 3 of these are a lot of kinds of, these are the albums you would want to buy if you were really into Kraftwerk sound. These were the cream of the crop. And they came out between 1976 and 1982. The 4th phase of Kraftwerk, which would be these albums, well, 2 of them are really full-length albums. The one in the middle, Expo 2000, is actually a 12-inch, well, on the album it would be a 12-inch single. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's basically one song, Expo 2000. Drawn out and played in different various ways and put together. This album here, Electric Cafe, came out in 1986, and although these albums still have the same sound as the 3rd phase, the one that was real popular, by this time other groups were doing this kind of music and they didn't seem so influential at the time. This album here, for instance, it has a lot of sampling on it, and although it's still a good album, it doesn't quite have the impact of their earlier albums. And this one, of course, is just a single. It's a 12-inch single, like I said, it's about 20 minutes long. For Kraftwerk complete, if you want everything by Kraftwerk, you still need this album. This is their last album that they released, and it released in 2003. Or I should say it's their last studio album. Tour de France. The Tour de France, if you get it on vinyl, it's a double album. Although it's not a real long double album. I think it's only about 50 minutes, 52 minutes, something like that. And this was a bit of an improvement over this one. But it's still not, it didn't quite have the impact that their really, really influential phase has. I mean, their influential phase was practically as influential in the 90s as the Beatles were in, say, the 60s. But that's the 4 phases of Kraftwerk. Now, as far as my ranking, which includes these 12 albums, this is my lowest ranking one. Again, it's a single. And I have all these on album, by the way, on vinyl. Mainly because it's just one piece of music, and of course it gets a bit repetitious because it's like 20 minutes long. There is enough variation there to make it worthwhile, but that's why it's the lowest one on my list. The next lowest list this one. Now this version of it is called Techno Pop. In the 80s it came out with Electric Cafe, and when they re-released it, it was called Techno Pop. And it's almost identical. The only difference is there's a song on here called Telephone Call, which the single version is on this along with an additional track called House Phone. Either one of these albums is pretty good. Like I said, it's not quite as powerful as their main stuff, but it's still a pretty good listen. Ten is Tone Flow, the 10th one in my list. This is kind of it's very, like I said, very experimental. Side 1 is much better than side 2. If you're definitely you're going to avoid this if you want their techno pop age, because this is like totally acoustical instruments, mostly percussion with a little bit of flute, and I think there's a little organ on here, and it's interesting. It's definitely interesting, but that's why it's number 10. Number 9 is their first official album. Like Tone Float is very experimental. It's only got 4 tracks, and they're all about the same length. The first track on the album, Ruckzuck, is probably the main reason to want this album. It definitely has a little bit more rhythm and stuff to it. It's one that they used to play live back when they did this kind of music. They play this piece, Ruckzuck, live quite often. And I do like this album, but it's, like I said, it's not the kind of stuff you'd want if you were into Kraftwerk's techno phase. The next one is their last one, Tour de France. It does sound like the traditional techno pop phrase of Kraftwerk. However, it's not quite up to the standards of their big 3. Still worth a listen though. Then their second album, which actually started to show signs of their electronic music. Like I said, with Kling Klang. Kling Klang in itself is worthy of buying this album for. It is still experimental, but it definitely shows the direction they were headed into. And so that's my next one. My next one, a lot of people will be surprised this one's this far down on the list. Trans-Europe Express. It is an excellent album, it really is. This kind of shows you how good the albums from this phase was, that this being this far low and still being as good as it is. Next one's Ralph and Florian. Well, like I said, their progressive phase is kind of my favorite phase of Kraftwerk. And it's kind of a shame this didn't get an official release, because this does fit in with Kraftwerk's sound. The only main difference is that it's pretty much all instrumental. Like I said, except for little vocoder stuff near the end of it. And it is really an excellent listen. The Man Machine. I really like this album. Pieces like The Robots, Metropolis, The Man Machine. I mean, it's really techno, and it definitely shows. This is well worth having. This is really something to go after if you like the techno side of Kraftwerk. And this is my favorite of their techno period, Computer World. Still a little bit experimental. The songs on here are actually shorter, which is kind of unusual for me. I usually like a lot of longer tracks, but this all runs together pretty well, and it is really a good listen. And I mean, it's like really danceable. It's just pretty cool. The next one's Radioactivity. Now, if you notice, when I had the Radioactivity on CD, the cover looked different. This is what their cover looked like when it was released in 1975, and this is the re-release. If you pull the album out, it does have that radio cover on it as an inside sleeve. And if you bought the original album in 1975, along with the album, there was a little sticker that looked like this on inside the album. Excellent album though. And my favorite, Autobahn. I mean, this is the first album I heard when I heard Kraftwerk, and I was pretty surprised. And this is probably one of the most popular albums to be released that's vocals are not in English. It is a really, really hypnotic album, especially side one. Now you look at the group here. They had longer hair and stuff. Later on, they cut their hair really short. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, that's what they looked like later on. But this is still a journey. This is a really good album. Came out in '74. Has a four-man group. Three of them are the ones that were also in the classic lineup. The only difference being Klaus Reuter, I guess you pronounce it, instead of Karl Bartos. But this is really good. I mean, if you're into progressive music and you want to hear Kraftwerk, this is the one I'd recommend. And hopefully you enjoyed that. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and pass it on to anybody you think would be interested in learning about Kraftwerk. That's it. Thank you.